Thanks, Stephen, for telling us about all your cool experiences in different places around the world. I used to live in the Middle East when I was young, and that was different again, culture-wise, and the way business is done there. So, yeah, I find this all fascinating, to be honest, how things change around the world. But I guess coming back to my experiences, back to London, Stephen's asked me to come and tell you guys what a business development person, in my case business development manager is my job title, what we do. I work for a company called Softwire. We're based in North London. We do bespoke design, development, everything from kind of rapid prototyping to hardcore algorithmic stuff that Stephen was talking about, UX design, support. So we develop all kinds of websites, apps for all kinds of people. So my experience is obviously very much from a selling services point of view, I guess, as opposed to a product company. If you guys are building products and selling those to people, you may have a slightly different experience. But overall, I would say that the skills you need, the purpose of a role of business development in any company is going to be fundamentally quite similar. What it's all about really is building relationships. So I actually was having a quite interesting chat with Stephen and Yoda and some of the others before this about what's the difference between sales versus business development. Is it about hitting targets, or is it about getting to know people? And I don't necessarily see those two things as incompatible or different. Building relationships is what it's really all about, and by building those relationships, you then create yourself the opportunities to actually make the sales, hit the targets. So in Softwire, we're very lucky. We get 70 to 80% repeat business year on year. So it's not only about looking for kind of new business opportunities. Those are kind of new blood in a sense. It's about kind of looking for new things and that's sort of the future of your business, I guess, is your new customers. But also, it's really important as a business development manager to spend just as much time, if not more, keeping your relationships going with your existing customers and making sure that everyone's happy with what you do, because frankly, it's the cheapest way of winning new business is to win repeat business from the customers that you already have. So in terms of, I talked about opportunities, the business development person's role is basically to find new opportunities or potentially ones from existing customers, as I said. So that's also known as lead generation, kind of going out there looking for different ways to build those relationships with people. Once you've maybe met with some people, or you've spoken to them on the phone, or you found an opportunity in some other way, maybe through something like a government tender, or people like the BBC also put things out to tender. Once you've found the opportunity, you need to build that relationship, basically. That's what the progressing opportunities side is about. That could be everything from early stage kind of phone calls, meetings with them, trying to understand who they are, what they do, what they need, whether they need something now, whether they might need something in a year, to once they have, basically getting them to sort of know and trust your company and make sure that you're top of the list when they've got something that they need done. So then when an opportunity does come up, it moves to kind of maybe preparing a proposal for them. Maybe that's something formal, maybe it's something very informal, but getting everything lined up so that they will shortlist down to you, they will pick you, and they'll pick you over anybody else. And that's what the closing stage is about, just making sure that you've given them everything they need, you've given them all the information they need, you've given them whatever they need to say yes to you. So what does success look like? Well, in some ways it's quite easy for salespeople to know if they're being successful or not, because sales is quite easy to measure because money is quite easy to measure. However, it's not just about how many new customers you've got or how much sales you've closed. You can also, if you just measured that, it would probably be quite unpredictable. And you'd probably be quite kind of, sorry, just wait for that. Thanks. Cool. So yeah, if you were just waiting for kind of, if you're just looking at the headline numbers or the headline numbers of customers or whatever, you wouldn't necessarily know how you were going to get future customers, and you need to look at the whole pipeline. So that's everything from people that you're having kind of early stage discussions with, people you've just met, maybe at a networking event, maybe cold calling, maybe getting someone to cold call for you, an agency, maybe marketing via your website, all different kinds of ways that you can kind of get to know people. So that's sort of the early stage stuff, things like numbers of meetings with people, numbers of opportunities uncovered from those meetings. Yeah, there's a lot of stats you can track. And sort of then moving on to things like progressing opportunities, how many proposals are you putting in, how many sort of actual opportunities are you really getting there? And in order to find the customers who are going to help you meet these KPIs, you need to be spending your time efficiently. So this is really the absolute key of a business development manager's success or failure, really, is spending your time on the things that are going to come to fruition. And there's quite a bit of judgment involved in that, which is why it's very hard to just sort of say, yes, this is what it takes to be a good business development manager. Some of it is judgment, experience, but time management, definitely a big part of it. And a big part of that is knowing who to target, making sure that you're not spending time talking to people who aren't a good fit for you. So that's everything from kind of a cultural fit, So at Softwire, for example, we like to talk to people who value quality, who value kind of good customer service, who want to build a long-term relationship, and that's the kind of people that we like to work with. If you're just looking for the absolute cheapest, then maybe you should be shopping in Cape Town or Warsaw, perhaps. So kind of looking for that fit, I think, is the really important part. I mean, I'm kind of, maybe we can discuss this at the end, but I'm curious to know how this might translate if you're selling a product and you're kind of selling it to a mass market. I guess it's maybe about finding segments of that market or targeting certain people. Another important thing is knowing what you're trying to sell right now. Are you trying to, it depends on your resource situation, so you might have lots of developers or a few developers sitting around with not much to do. Are you trying to close stuff for right now? Or is everyone actually quite busy and you want to focus on building the longer term relationships and things that might come to fruition in 6 months or a year? So keeping in touch with whoever manages the resource in your company, and that may well be you if you're a very small company, I suppose. But kind of having that idea of, are we talking about short-term sales, long-term sales? And that's why it's all about the building relationships, building a pipeline, having kind of people you can talk to at all stages, not just the ones who come to you and say, I need this thing right now, but people who are going to be there in a year's time when you need to talk to them about something. Which kind of also comes down to the account value versus sales ROI side of it. So I guess in a way you can be choosy about your customers. You can be thinking both about whether they're a good fit sort of cultural wise, but also whether there's an opportunity to build that kind of long-term relationship with them. Are they potentially going to partner with you over many years, and are they going to kind of be a good customer in the long term? And hopefully they will be thinking the same of you. They want to know that you're going to be a good supplier for them in the long term. Again, sometimes things like whether they ask you to respond via tenders, or whether you kind of just turn up at their office and they say, great, we like you, we'll give you some work. That's the sort of thing you have to weigh up in the sales ROI. So tools of the trade. So I talked earlier about KPIs, stats, reporting, things like that. You really need a good CRM that's going to give you all that information so that you can actually not just come into work and think, what am I doing today, but actually have a plan and, and be thinking, okay, who's that guy I spoke to a year ago who told me to call him back in a year? Yeah, so that's where your CRM really comes into it. LinkedIn, obviously a great tool for all kinds of networking, but also for sales, also for business development. That can be a good way of kind of getting early leads, as well as also keeping in touch with people who you might know from one situation that have moved on somewhere else. Phone, email, and meetings. So these are your three day-to-day weapons, basically, weapons of communication that you have to kind of deploy effectively according to what you're trying to get out of that customer. So if you've kind of done your research and you've identified that these are the ones we really want to go after, maybe book a meeting. Whereas if someone's perhaps come to you and you need to find out a little bit more about them first, maybe you phone them. So again, it's all very much about effective use of time. If you kind of have face-to-face meetings with everybody and you're traveling all around the country, maybe you're not talking to as many people as you could just phone or email. Having said that, obviously meetings, face-to-face contact is much more valuable, so something to be spent wisely. And I guess your calendar and your to-do list are obvious tools for everybody, but particularly for business development people, and not just in the sense of you come in the morning and you think, what am I going to do today? But you come in the morning and you think, what am I doing today? Who's the guy from 3 months ago that I'm calling? And, what am I doing in 3 months? What am I doing in 6 months? And you're kind of looking ahead like that and kind of building that pipeline. Skills for success. So I guess this is where sales and business development maybe come back together. It's all about knowing, well, my colleague Yemi, who's actually somewhere here, he told me when I first started in this role that sales is like dating, which I think is quite a good analogy actually. So it's all about kind of knowing who you are and what you want from a potential partner, where a partner in this case is someone to partner with on a business scenario. So yeah, knowing what your strengths are, but also then really, really, really importantly, listening to your customer. When you talk them on the phone, when you meet them, asking them open questions, everything from kind of how's business to, how's the latest, merger that's going on in your company affecting your department, to kind of what other options have you got for resourcing. I mean, there's all kinds of questions that you can ask which allow people to talk about themselves, and everyone likes talking about themselves. So ask people about themselves, listen to what they say, listen to what kinds of, what drives them. Is it kind of they're scared of something that might happen and they need someone to help them with it, or is it they're really ambitious and they want to go out there and do great things and they want someone who's going to share their vision? That kind of stuff. Because whatever your company has to offer, if you can match that to what the customer is looking for, then that's your secret for success, really. But that makes it sound quite easy. In actual fact, a lot of this game is a waiting game, and it's kind of waiting for budget to be approved, it's waiting for changes of staff to happen, it's waiting for things in the parent company that's totally outside of your control. I guess if you're talking about kind of selling a product maybe to consumers, maybe we're talking about waiting to see what happens with Brexit. I mean, that's why it's important to have a range of things in your pipeline, from maybe kind of very large companies, or, you know, a certain kind of large sector of the population you're trying to sell to, perhaps, to kind of tailoring that to maybe people who are looking for smaller projects, but that might be able to start much more quickly because their companies can be much more flexible. Again, that comes back to kind of having the right thing for the resourcing situation that you're in, and just being able to kind of have enough of a broad pipeline, people that you're starting early meetings with to people that you're about to close something with, having a range of people that you're talking to, and just being persistent, just keeping in touch, building those relationships, getting back to people when you say you will, all that kind of thing is really important. So yeah, so that's been sort of my experience. I'm sure you guys, I don't know how many of you guys actually have dedicated business development people in your organisation, or not even one, I don't think. So yeah, hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight then into what a business development manager does all day, what's important, what kind of skills they need. But yeah, if you want to ask any questions, I'm here, my colleague Yemi is also here. Where are you, Yemi? Can you wave at people? Oh, here he is, over here. Stephen, I don't know if you want to wrap up a bit, or yeah.
Just really on the software you're actually using. So what are you using as a CRM?
We use Dynamics. We've got the latest version, which is cloud-based, which we actually find to be a lot better than previous versions of it. It's a lot more kind of responsive. It doesn't crash all the time. And it's also very customizable. So we've built things like, we've got a dashboard that you can see exactly for every opportunity that's likely to come through in, say, the next 3 months or the next month, I think. We've got a kind of task dashboard that we wrote ourselves that shows, you know, what Yemi's doing, what I'm doing, what our priorities are. So it's, yeah, the extendability is actually really useful because you can customize it to your build and to your business. We've used. Sorry, I was just going to say we've used others in the past. I think we used Sugar CRM. Is that right, Yemi? Which I don't think we had as much success with. So, I mean, horses for courses. Obviously, Dynamics cost quite a lot, but yeah, we're taking advantage of the customizing. Sorry, who was?
Do you use content marketing to generate business leads as well?
Sorry, I'm trying to come forward without you.
Sure. Do you use content marketing to generate business leads?
So I guess our marketing focus is primarily on our website. We don't necessarily, being a services company, we don't necessarily sort of buy, you know, big billboards or anything like that. We do things like put ads online, Google AdWords. So if people are maybe thinking of buying some software and, you know, they're searching for that kind of thing, then they might come up with us. Other than that, our website does bring in incoming leads as well. So people ring us up and saying, you know, yeah, I need something built and can you do it for me? Our experience, I guess, is that that's a bit of a mixed bag in terms of kind of if you're relying on that, you're waiting for your customers to come to you, whereas if you're going out and actively finding your customers, then you're a little bit more able to kind of pick people who you think you'll be a good fit with. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah, it's just a quick question. I think you gave a very fantastic presentation on business development from a B2B perspective. I was wondering if some of the things you've said can be sort of deployed to some multi-asset business that hasn't made that evolution yet, or perhaps be trying to grow users and for an existing platform, that sort of thing. I mean, can those tactics you've spoken about be deployed?
Well, I would say the biggest deal, as I said right at the beginning, is it's about building relationships. And then, as I said right at the end, it's about listening to your customers and matching what you have to offer with what they want. So I guess that's easier to do when you're able to just go and meet people face to face. But maybe if you're doing kind of B2C, you need to find other ways to make those connections with people. So whether it's maybe like social media or going out and speaking at, I don't know, any kind of event that might be in the area you're trying to sell to. I think if you know who you have a good fit with, that's the first part of the battle. If you know who your company, what your company has to offer and what kinds of people might be looking for that, then it's just about finding ways to connect with them, I guess. I don't think I can give any more kind of specific tips than that because I've not worked in that kind of company myself, but maybe it's something that other people have had experience with here and can chat to you about at the end. Oh, sorry, just the guy at the back.
You spoke about KPI. Can you please give examples of KPI?
So things we track are, for example, how many meetings we've held with people per month. Obviously the big one, which is amount of business closed. Things like how much repeat business versus how much new business. Yemi's our head of new business, so he's kind of looking into that.
Yeah.
He might know a few more of the KPIs.
Yeah, so things like, how many, it all boils down to the big number at the end of sort of what your targets for your team and for your business are, and then sort of tracking back from that. So as Jenny says, how many meetings are being attended, how many phone calls are being made, how many new leads are being generated, and sort of tracking the conversion of all of that activity into something positive, i.e. new opportunities that you can put forward quotes for or write proposals for. I'm going to speak on from the service as well, but yeah, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think you have to kind of figure out what the steps are that your customers go through to learn to get to know you and learn to trust you. Whether that's even from a B2C perspective, what's going to attract them to you in the first place, what's going to make them like the sound of you, what's going to make them choose you over a competitor. So, I mean, maybe in more of a B2C world, it's things like tracking Google Analytics and people returning to your website or that kind of thing. Maybe that's more to do with marketing. But if you're going out there and actively having conversations with people and targeting the right people, you would hope to then see that reflected in those numbers. Yeah?
You have some key accounts in which you say that these are the ones which you focus on? Key accounts?
Yeah, yes and no, I would say. So, I mean, there's nobody for us that isn't important because, as I say, a lot of it's a kind of a waiting game. Things change over time. Maybe somebody who might just give you a small project at first might suddenly come back with a year, having been sold somewhere else, and and give you a lot more work. But in terms of using your time efficiently, yeah, you are inevitably going to be prioritizing, I guess, people for whom you can see that you can more easily make a sale. Is that fair, Yemi? Yeah. But I mean, sometimes. So one example is a customer that we were chasing for kind of months and months to get a quote, to get a kind of a brief from to quote against. And we thought, oh, this is going nowhere, and they don't really know how to run a software project. They've not really done it before, and so everything was kind of taking a long time, even to get to that stage. But that was actually an opportunity because that turned out that they didn't really know how to run a software project, and if someone comes along and gives them all that help and answers all of their due diligence questions really thoroughly and everything like that, then ever since we managed to close the first piece of work with those guys, they've given us like every piece of work they have since, and that effort paid off. So yeah, I can see Stephen kind of creeping up on me here. Maybe we should carry this on later.
Has anybody got a last question? This is the last one.
I'll speak to you afterwards.